Hi everyone, welcome back to 33 Founders. Chase and I are delighted to be joined by Melanie Perkins tonight, the co-founder and CEO of Canva. Thanks so much for joining us, Melanie.
Thank you so much for having me.
So it's no secret that people are catching on to Canva, and in under a year you have over 400,000 users. But this started back when you were 19, when Cliff and you started Fusion Books. Can you give us a little overview of the journey?
Yeah, sure. So the actual idea came about for Canva and Fusion Books when I was actually teaching design programs at university. So I was studying, and part-time I was teaching Photoshop and InDesign, and they were just so difficult to use and complex. And it just seemed so obvious that in the future design would be all online and collaborative and simple. And so me and Cliff started the first company, Fusion Books, which took that concept and applied it to the yearbook market. And then that was going really well, and we became the largest yearbook company in Australia, and we launched in New Zealand and France. And people kept saying, I want to use your program to design all sorts of other things. And then we decided we're going to tackle the bigger market of enabling everyone to design anything they want. And so, that's been a very long and fun journey. I spent a lot of time in San Francisco. A few years ago, I had no idea what startups were, even though we'd had one for a few years before that. We learned about venture capital and met a lot of investors, and the journey sort of rolled on from there. We actually now have hit 550,000 users, so it's been growing phenomenally.
Nice. And now Guy Kawasaki, who even recently joined your team as chief evangelist, he's compared you guys to Google, Apple, eBay, but you are still saying that you're only 1% into accomplishing your master goal. I mean, what's in store for the other 99%?
So our vision is to enable anyone to take their idea and turn it into a design, and for there to be absolutely no friction between those 2 points, whether it's for web or print or whatever it is that they want. So there's a lot of things we're yet to unleash. In fact, over the next few months, there's been some things we've been working on for quite some time that we're going to be unveiling. So just wait and see, just a little longer.
So even though Canva's a freemium model, a lot of the designs cost $1 to add. How's that model worked for you so far? Do more people use the free platform, or are a lot of people turning to the $1, $2 designs?
Yeah. So our intention with Canva was to make it entirely free to use, so people can come on, they can design really quickly, and they just turn to it all the time that they want to create something. So we thought it was really important that there was no barrier to entry for people to get on there. And then we've got a library of over 1 million images, and each of those images, if you use one of these premium images, costs $1 to use. And so we're giving a royalty to the photographer or the illustrator, and then it's only when they're exporting the design that you pay. So what's super fun about it is that you can actually put your elements and your design, you can actually come up with exactly what you want, and it's only when you want to export that you actually pay for them. And it's doing really well. We've been very surprised by people's response to it, and it really fits with a lot of the way people want to use photography. Prior to Canva, you would download a couple of images on a stock photography site and pay quite a bit, but then you'd have to use those same images for the next 10 years because they were quite expensive. Whereas with Canva, it really encourages people to use fresh new content every time they're making a post for social media or for their blog.
So would you recommend this type of model for other startups, to have the basis be free, and then when you do add on price, it's only $1 and it's completely up to the user?
I think it really depends on the business and the model that you want to pursue and what makes sense for your users. For us, I think that it was really problematic for users having, really expensive software to learn, really expensive products, and all the different aspects are just too expensive and time consuming. So for us, our whole company has been based around solving that problem that was the pain point. So I think that would probably be my more general advice, is just, if you start a company around solving a problem, it makes everything a lot easier, because it's not easy, nothing is easy, but it makes, once you actually solve a problem, then people are receptive to your product, they'll tell people about it more. There's a lot of great effects from solving a problem.
Great.
Now, moving on to marketing, what I've learned is that when you market to everyone, you really market to no one. But you've got a user base ranging from school teachers to bloggers, such a wide field of different people and professions. So how are you satisfying each user?
I think that design is something that affects everyone. It affects every single industry. If you're a little small cafe, or if you're a teacher, or if you're working in education, any field that you're possibly in, you're needing to present yourself in a visual manner now. Even a resume these days should look good and not just be some old text Word document. So I guess design is something that's universal. Specifically for us, we've really tried to foster great relationships with bloggers and content marketers, because that's something they use it very frequently. So for us, focusing on people that use have a design need on a regular basis has been where we've really concentrated. But we've been absolutely surprised and very overwhelmed by the breadth of people using it. I didn't even at the moment Canva's only available in English, and yet we've had people from all sorts of countries saying, oh, this certain character doesn't work in our alphabet, and can you support crazy different variety of fonts around the world. And so it's been very surprising by where Canva has been used. But I think it's right, you do need to make sure that you're focusing your marketing efforts on one particular niche to start with. Otherwise, you're right, you don't market to anyone.
Melanie, as a young founder, I've been given 2 pieces of advice lately that really contradict each other. The first piece is to say yes to nearly every opportunity. So always say yes. And then the next piece is to say no, to keep focus. So as I'm just starting out, I'm trying to figure out what to do with that. And I stumbled across your journey trying to hire Cameron. And you were told by Lars, who is a founder of Google Maps and directs engineering at Facebook, every time you would bring someone to him, he'd say no. You have to find someone better. So you continued to hear no, but it ended up really well. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that you have to say yes to the right things and no to the right things. And to know what the right things is very important to distinguish. So I think setting a goal. So for example, setting our goal was, at one stage, or with Fusion Books, for example, setting our goal was to build a product for as inexpensively as we possibly could and get it to the market and make money, because otherwise we were going to have no company instantly, because we had a very, very limited budget. But then with Canva, we had to raise investment. And so that was a multi-year journey of meeting investors, building relationships. And so we would say yes to absolutely everything. I mean, I learned kite surfing just to go to an investor conference. Absolutely anything I just could possibly say yes to get to the goal. If you say yes to everything just generically, you probably won't even spend any time in the office or working on anything, because it's not towards your goal. So if you've set a goal, then you say yes to every single opportunity along the path to get to that goal. Again, exactly with finding Cameron, we spent a very, very long time. I went to every conference. I was on LinkedIn constantly. Absolutely any opportunity I got to try and find a co-founder, I took that. To try and find a technical co-founder, I took that opportunity. And so you never know what seed is going to grow. So you absolutely have to say yes to everything if it's in line with a possibility of uncovering the next big goal for you, the next big frontier.
It sounds like the perfect balance. And I know you guys focus heavily on long-term hires. Do you use this model, the Cameron model, for every person you hire?
Yes, we've been very fortunate, I guess, to set the engineering bar, in fact, every bar, very high. So we take a very long time to find the right people that fit out, believe in our vision. They have the technical skills, they have the personality, they have the cultural fit, all of the different things that you need to take into account to make sure they're going to be excellent team members. It's actually quite funny. There was a story about how we hired our lead engineer, Dave Herndon. He had been in, we were introduced actually through Lars again, and he said, he was really interested in joining us, but because he's so incredibly good, Google was trying to keep him there. And so I wrote him this visual fairy tale of how if he came to Canva it was going to be an adventure, and it was just photos that I'd taken from his Facebook account, and then I made it into a story. It was quite funny, but just trying absolutely anything that you can to get to the goals that you need to get to.
I love it. So now let's talk a little bit about exposure. Back in the early days of Fusion Book, you kind of said that you're hiding out a little bit. But now with Canva, you're huge into networking, and you've talked about that a lot today. And that's because of what you call the San Francisco mentality. So how would you advise other entrepreneurs to put themselves out there in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, it sort of all stemmed. I met Bill Ty, who's an investor, at a conference in Perth. I had literally a 5-minute conversation, and then 6 months later, I jumped on a plane and went up to San Francisco and met with him. I intended on staying there for 2 weeks, ended up staying there for 3 months until my visa ran out. But I think just, putting yourself out there, going to conferences, don't be afraid to talk to people. But at the same time, don't just be going to conferences. It's important to balance, working on your actual project, making progress, and then being able to have things to talk about when you're at the conference. It's sort of this, it's a balancing act, because you need to make sure you're actually, moving things along. I think that's one of the most powerful things, is that every time we talk to investors, because I was talking to them for years before we actually landed investment, I'd go back and say, hey, that thing that we said we were going to do, we've actually done it. And it would just happen time and time again. And so, I think going to conferences and networking is really important, and making those connections, and at the same time just trying to get as far as you possibly can with your startup.
So aside from networking and getting out of the office, going to conferences, how about writing opportunities? How has that benefited you?
Yeah, we have absolutely been writing blogs about, we've got a few people at our company that write blogs. Guy and Peg, who's Guy's social media
Guy does love the blog.
Yeah, and Guy writes a good few blogs. He's a very good writer. In fact, Guy and Peg have a book coming out shortly. And then, Zach writes blogs. Everyone writes blogs. I think if you've got something you want to share with the world, it's a worthwhile thing to do. And then not only does it help share valuable advice, but then it gets our name out there as well.
Melanie, one of the things I've been really eager to touch on with you just touched on answering Chase's question. So the process of building Canva was multiple years. It wasn't like you had the idea and then it came to fruition immediately. How did you keep
7
yourself... Yeah, 7 years is a long time.
It is a long time.
How did you keep yourself on track, not only with the hope that your dream was going to come true with it, but keep everybody else on track to accomplish the goal you set out to?
That's a good question. I think that it again comes back to that problem that you really want to solve. If you believe that that problem is going to be solved in the future, 7 years ago, I was like, there's no way that desktop publishing is going to be the way it is in the future, even though the future actually took much longer to come to fruition than I had expected. And it's still coming into fruition. I think just being really attached to the goal that you set out is extremely important, because it's not like you have an idea, you can whip up a product in a weekend and then have your product out. It very, very seldom happens like that. So being attached to that problem and really wanting to solve it, I think, is essential.
So as you gain international presence and people from around the world are contacting you about Canva, what does your vision for success look like for the company? That's
a great question. I think my vision for success is really just helping people to take their ideas and turn it into design, and having zero friction between the 2 points. I'd like it to be in the hands of everyone who needs to design, which happens to be almost everyone in the world. I'm very excited. We feel like we're just getting started with what we can do with Canva, and it's been incredible to get the reaction we've had so far. We hope to continue.
So how can people get in touch with you and then also get on Canva?
Yeah, so to get on Canva, go to canva.com, and I'm on Twitter at Melanie Canva. And we'd love to see you on the platform, and we'd love to see the designs that you're creating.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you,
Melanie.
Thank you so much for having me.